I have two questions for you. So,
Yeah.
the first question is, over the period of time, there was this very strong economic disparity because of the neoliberal policies and the continuing capitalism of the French mandate, uh, that Shia were very underprivileged in Lebanon. They were located in the Bekaa Valley or south of Lebanon, or in the periphery of Lebanon, not in the
Mhm.
main city center. The Beirut port, for example, as Joseph Dahar, who was yesterday with us, explained in his
Ah, he
book.
was, yeah.
Yeah, he explained that how the Beirut port was more used by the Maronite Christians. They had more agency over it. But still, over the period of time after the independence, this consensus had changed.
Mhm.
So in this context, I have two questions. The first question is, when you don't have an identity or
Yes.
a strict idea of identity, in this case, the strict idea of a Lebanese identity,
Mhm.
what happens or how is patriotism generated?
Absolutely.
That is the first question. The second is, um, and this because I'm
Mhm.
making a video specifically on this question. Um,
Yes.
a, a lot of scholars believe that the question of Palestine is
Yes.
just a Trojan horse.
Of
Eventually,
Palestine. Yeah.
yeah, the question of Palestine is a Trojan horse because eventually the idea of Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis
Mm.
or the Islamist fundamentalists is to create a caliphate which will
Yeah.
have no respect for human rights, and that is because it is taught in Islam. I'm playing the devil's advocate. I'm just letting you
Yes.
know the perspective.
You're
And
being the
this is
devil.
what,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, like a certain kind of
Yes.
Islamophobia also, which is generated by using
Mhm.
Palestine as a Trojan horse. So, what are
Mhm.
your views on it? So, in simple, two questions. First is, how is patriotism generated when you do not have a strict idea of Lebanese identity? What is
Uh,
patriotism then? I'm not asking about nationalism. And second
okay. So,
is, yeah,
yes.
and second is about the
Palestine, the
Palestine.
Palestine question.
Yeah.
The Palestine question. Okay. Now, the answer to the first question is that patriotism is generated with a lot of difficulty,
Yeah.
but with a lot of success in the case of Lebanon. Rather, because of the freedom that the system provides, you adjust your identity to the system. You're not forced to accept the identity imposed by the system. Wherever the identity was imposed by the system, it excluded a lot of people. In Turkey, when nationalism started, one of the byproducts of this nationalism was the Armenian massacres, was the expulsion of the Greeks, was the suppression of the Kurds, the expulsion of the Assyrians, of the Arabs in the south. And then, hallelujah, you have a uniform identity in Turkey, and you have a very strict definition of their history. One of my friends was expelled from university. He lost his job and almost went to prison, and he had to emigrate to the U.S. uh, because he dared question the state-sanctioned version of history. He was teaching his students to think, which is forbidden. Because when the state dictates history and dictates identity and creates a cohesive definition, then any questioning of that means that you are a national security risk.
Yeah.
You're threatening the cohesiveness of society.
Or
So in Lebanon, we have
anti-national.
no cohesive. Yes, we have no cohesiveness.
Yeah.
And we are proud of having no cohesiveness. And it was a huge advantage of not to have it. because we have such a fluid idea of what a Lebanese is that anybody can fit in. So one thing that people forget about Lebanon is that in the from the 20s, from the start of the rise of nationalism in the region, Lebanon has been a refuge to all the elite of the region and all the rejected people in the region who were not accepted in these national. For example, take Alexandria as a city. Alexandria was the most important and the richest
Yep.
port in the Mediterranean.
Yep.
People used to go from Europe to work in Alexandria, like now you have people in Alexandria going to work
In
in Europe.
Cairo,
People
yeah,
used to
same.
go,
Yeah.
yes, and it was a cosmopolitan city with a Greek community that was there, probably in continuous presence since Alexander the Great, because it was, yeah. So when Abdel Nasser came up with his definition of what is an Arab and what is Arab nationalism, the people of Alexandria did not fit because they were mixtures. There were Lebanese, there were Syrians, there were Turks, there were Albanians, there were Maltese, there were French, Jews, there were big Jewish community, uh, 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 a big Greek community. They were all expelled. They were nationalized and expelled because they did not fit in it. Where did they go? They came to Lebanon. Where did the rich people of Smyrna and all the minorities from
Yep.
the Turkish coast, from Smyrna, Adana, and all that, who have a very rich history and were economically rich too. When they had to leave because Smyrna was destroyed due to nationalism, and in the same way, and Aleppo was destroyed due to nationalism. Aleppo was a very cosmopolitan city. Mosul was also affected because of that. So Lebanon, because it had such a fluid definition of what is Lebanese, it was very easy to come to Lebanon and become Lebanese after less than one generation. People don't even ask in Lebanon. And at the same time, because there is freedom of practice and freedom of thought, there is no suppression of religion. And in my view, when you suppress religion, you create extremism. It's when religion. Uh, uh, so, for example, in France, the reason I think France has so much extreme Islamist manifestation is because the freedom of religion is suppressed. When your religion dictates, or when it says that you have to wear a scarf to work, and you're prevented from wearing the scarf because of your identity, you're more it's easier for radicals and extremists to recruit you and tell you that you're suppressed and you have to revolt and you have to all of that. So I think the freedom that Lebanon has produced has two edges. One of them is that it destroyed the country twice, which is quite a price. And the second is that our prosperity is due to that weakness of the state and liberal acceptance of identities and religions and all that. So but if you look at the last 100 years, when Lebanon was created, it is true that Lebanon was a Maronite project pushed for by the Maronite patriarch who went to Paris to the peace conference and asked for Greater Lebanon to be created as a state. When Lebanon was created as a state, not even half the Maronites were with it. So So when Lebanon was created as a state, half the Maronites were against it. Probably all the Sunnis were against it. Most of the Shias were against it. The Greek Orthodox were certainly against it. The Armenians were, well, they were happy to be there, but they were not really part of they were just arrived. They were just arrived. But the Greek Catholics also. So, but 100 years later, I think everybody identifies loosely as a Lebanese, not a very strong and not a very strong nationalistic fear and exclusive feeling. Um, that's my that's why. So patriotism was difficult to achieve, but it has been achieved. People movements like the PLO could only grow in a place like Lebanon in the region because of the freedom. But then they took too much advantage of it. So instead of benefiting from it, they destroyed it. And it's the same. This is our discussion now with the Hezbollah supporters, that if Lebanon did not have that freedom, you would not be able to be that strong. And you are killing that freedom. Which will abolish you. So that now the Palestinian question, you see, any question. What I always say is that the best causes attracts the worst type of people, because the worst type of people want to show virtue. They adopt good causes to show virtue, and that's why you have some of the worst people in the world pro-Palestinian. Suddenly they are pro. I mean, when President Assad was destroying cities and he killed 500,000 people and expelled, there are 9 million refugees and 12 million displaced and 140,000 people in prisons, and we're hearing all these horrible torture. They did not protest on a humanitarian grounds. So, but now they're adopting Gaza as a cause. So if you hear someone waving a Palestinian flag and calling for justice in Gaza and for the always check what their position on Syria was. If they supported Assad and Hezbollah and the massacres in Syria and are suddenly becoming humanitarian, then just brush them aside. They are now supporting Gaza, for me, is totally not credible when they were the ones helping Assad massacre his own people. So that's so they're using it, and same as Iran, same as the militias in Iraq and the Houthis and all that. It's virtue projection.
No, that's there's a lot of tweets that is happening, specifically on musicians and various celebrities who have had different kinds of stand on Syria and now have a different kind of stand on Palestine. And there's a strong cancel culture also. There's a very strong cancel culture, which I despise. Like, for example, there was Joseph Leifer, I guess. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. He is a PhD scholar at Yale University and wrote a book, Tablets Shattered. Just like 15-20 days back, it was published. And in Brooklyn, there was a book launch. In spite of the fact that he's an anti-occupation Jew, his book launch was cancelled. At the last minute, like half an hour before.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah. And that was,
Yes.
it's kind of demeaning, because why do you have to indulge in a cancel culture? Why can't he just come, speak about his
Mm,
book, ask questions?
of course. Yes.
And why
No,
can't,
no, it's
yeah,
yes. No, absolutely. I mean, and this kind of cancel culture makes things worse in a way. It's um, um, there's a lot of emotions being stirred by the Gaza war, and
yeah,
I mean, what you have to, I mean, what Hamas did on the 7th of October was really, I mean, it was an awful massacre of 1,200 people and taking 250 people as
yeah,
hostages
yeah,
in one day, in one day. And forget about, uh, I mean, you have to, in a way, re-describe the situation.
yeah,
People think of Israel as a settler colonial imperialist blah 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 project. I think of it as a refugee project.
yeah,
These are people who have come traumatized by having been through pogroms and through the Holocaust and through very serious discrimination and anti-Semitism in the whole of Europe. And someone had the idea in the late 19th century that they need a state to protect them. This was the trend at the time. The trend was that you needed the state to protect you. So the nationalist project of the Zionist Israel, the Zionist nationalist project is a product of its time, and the ethnic cleansing that happened was a product of its time in a way. The 30s and the 40s considered ethnic cleansing as part of international relations. People, I mean, think of India, of the partition of India. The exchange of population was seen as normal, as part of the process of creating two nation states. It's an aberration for me, who does not
it
believe in
is. The
nationalism
three
itself.
nation state
And
eventually.
three nation states eventually.
Yeah,
And in the same way, in Greece and Turkey and Greece, they
yeah,
exchanged 1.5 million people. Uh, this was done by treaty.
yeah,
The, why? In order to create homogeneous states, because these people do not fit in our homogeneous, unified, cohesive identity, which is artificially created anyway in
yeah,
through these nationalist movement. The same way in Palestine, in Israel, I mean, the Palestinians and the Israelis want to cancel each other.
yeah,
The in the extreme sides of it, not all of them, and
yeah,
that's one thing we have to remember that what we are seeing now is not representative of either the Palestinians or of the Israelis.
yeah,
It is representative of the success of a guerrilla operation,
yeah,
which created this reaction. So, from the perspective of Hamas, this was a guerrilla operation, and a guerrilla operation, uh, I mean, if you have your handbook of guerrilla tactics, it's the three phases of guerrilla revolution. It's you infiltrate the local population, you hit the state very hard so that the state will then hit back at the civilians and they will support you. There's a demonstration, you infiltrate the demonstration, you shoot at the army shoots back at the people, and the people rise against the army. This is classic guerrilla tactics, and Hamas did it successfully, awfully successfully, but that's what, and the success can be measured in the way that it raised consciousness of the Palestinian question globally, whereas people had forgotten it. So
yeah.
so that's so
No,
uh, it's very difficult to judge these things with a cool head.
to agree with you, like once talking with a Palestinian, he told me when I asked him about his own view, he said that, when two elephants fight, it
Yeah.
is the grass that suffers.
Yes.
And
In a sense, yeah.
that made me feel very, sorry is the wrong word, but more than, the crisis of any religion as such, I think we are going through a crisis of conscience on any side. A human life, be it of any nationality, of any region, a human life is a human life. Life is life.
Yeah.
But this division between which I see on Twitter that, oh, you're talking about Israeli hostages. What about so many Palestinians who have been killed? Why
Yeah.
can't mourning, grief be done collectively for every human life? Why does it need to
Um,
have structures?
in 2014, there was at the same time a war in Gaza and the war in Syria.
Yeah.
And one of my friends posted a tweet that people had to check the identity of the child before expressing outrage because because they were different. Uh,
It's
The
sad.
Palest the Palest Yes, it's sad that you only express
It's
outrage for if it's politically advantageous for you. It's really exploiting the tragedy
yeah.
to for political purposes. It has a technical word. It's called pedophrasty also.
Oh,
It's the exploitation of. It's when people bombard you with pictures of children suffering to
yeah.
justify uh, uh, a political cause. It's the exploitation of children in that sense. On
And the smallest coffins are the heaviest. This is
Yes,
the child is a child, irrespective of nationality,
yeah,
irrespective of, there's
yeah.
a life that has been snatched away, a future that has been snatched away. That is unforgivable. So there is a certain kind of lack of conscience which I see, and a certain kind of fitting of everyone according to their ideological stand that, okay, this is what I should say, this
Absolutely.
will make me look better or be better from my academic prospects, or this is how I should present
Yes.
myself so that I get fundings from this particular way. And that somehow is causing our own decay in a certain way, because we are not choosing humanity, but propaganda, ambition, exploitation, and it's man eat
So
man
that's yes,
idea.
exactly. So that's what that's what drives the majority of what you hear about both Israelis and
Yeah,
And Palestine
yep,
on that. And it's very difficult to describe the situation with a cool head,
yeah,
looking at both sides um, in a slightly more objective way. It's very difficult to be objective, of course, but and we are traumatized by the pictures we see.
yeah,
It's been we've been I mean we've been like this since October last year.
yeah.
It's
Going to be a
it's
year
very
now.
draining.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. We have two questions, sir, and then we'll end the
Yes.
podcast. Three questions, actually.
Okay.
The first question is from
Wonderful.
Tabassum. Tabassum is
Yes.
a volunteer with Middle East Insights platform, and her question is that
Mm.
how successful is consociational democracy in Lebanon, as there are many writings about its failure and complicated
Yes.
nature, and on how Christian mainly have migrated to the West and avoid
Yes.
constant conflicts in the region. That's the first question, that how can you have a
Mm.
democracy where you have a president who is a Maronite Christian, a prime minister who is Sunni, speaker who is Shia, and how can that system continue? The second
Yes.
question is from Gorang, who is another volunteer of our platform. Um,
Yes.
an extension of the first question, the expense of sovereignty or cohesive identity, which approach will lead to more stability? Which will avoid the other Kana tragedies from happening currently, taking into context the tensions with Israel. So, in short, what he's asking is that what is important, cohesive identity or sovereignty? And the third
Right.
question is, and I'll repeat all of you to it, how long ago did
Yes.
Israeli military fight with another military in 1973? Didn't its professionalism is coming down? Like the question by Dr. Khwaja Danish Hamid, he's a member of
Mhm.
MEI. The question is that about the professionalism of military. So, in short, the three questions are: first, in Lebanon, you
Yes.
have a Maronite president, Maronite
Present.
Christian
Yes.
president. You have
That's right.
a prime minister who is Sunni, and you have the Speaker of the House who is Shia. Does
Yeah.
this kind of demarcation really succeed in terms of consociational democracy? First question.
We have even we have
Yeah.
yes. Sorry. Yes. Mhm.
No, continue.
Okay. Ah. Okay. So we even have one other impossible formula, which is that Parliament is divided 50-50 between Christians and Muslims. However, this is the difference between the Lebanese power sharing system and the power sharing in Bosnia or in Ireland. In Bosnia or in Ireland, it's democratic, if you like, in the sense that it's according to votes, and the people who get more votes get more share in the balance of power. In Lebanon, it's an abstract agreement. It's intangible. There's an agreement that the country is equally for Christians and for Muslims, no matter how many there are. The Druze have 13 seats in parliament. Even if there are 13 Druze left, they will all become members of parliament. The Armenians have so many. The Catholics have so many. The Shiite have so many. And it's not equal
Yeah.
in the sense that a Druze MP can be, as an example, can be elected with 5,000 votes, whereas a Shiite MP has to be elected with more than 25,000 votes or something like that. So it's not one man, one vote in a way. It's a historic. It's like, you see, an empire is rules over many nations,
Yeah.
and the empire mode of living is that all these nations, if you go to a city in an empire, you have many nationalities in the city. You
Yeah.
walk in Istanbul, you have so many, or in any city in an empire, um, Calcutta, the old days. You have such a big mixture of people who live and who have their own quarters sometimes to keep some sort of isolation and security, but the identity of the members of an empire is cosmopolitan on that,
Yeah.
and we've maintained that, and that's how we've managed to attract the best intellectuals and capitalists and artists and musicians
Yeah.
and even crooks, if you like, or corrupt people from all the cities of the Levant,
Yeah.
because a society is composed of all of these.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And
Like, yeah. In the Indian system, for example, for every state, depending on what the population is, they have a number of
yeah,
MPs that can be selected in the lower house. So that is a certain kind of political dynamics that we have, which I think will be easier for the Indian students to understand that how the selection is done. Um, but the next question is from Norang.
yeah. But
Gorang is
but you see,
asking,
the answer to whether consociationism worked? No, it has not worked so far. But do the Lebanese give it up and prefer a dictatorship or a very strict national identity which would exclude people? Or the answer is definitely no.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy answer. We know it doesn't work. We know it requires a lot of hard work, but it produces such a rich society, and
Yeah.
that I think if you ask any Lebanese, the majority will be for the diversity we have in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one about sovereignty. Now, sovereignty is definitely overrated in the sense that the definition of a strict sovereign nation state, a nation state does not have to be sovereign. You don't have to have a strong army that can protect your borders, because to maintain this kind of independence and sovereignty. You can maintain sovereignty and you can maintain freedom and you can maintain independence through alliances, through protection. A country like Kuwait can never have an army that can protect it from Iraq and Iran and Saudi Arabia and everybody who thinks Kuwait is part of it. But Kuwait is protected by the international community. It's protected by the United States. When Iraq invaded Kuwait, immediately the world came and expelled Iraq from Kuwait. That's what protection is, in a sense. So in a way, Kuwait does not have sovereignty, but it had protection. So freedom and independence can be maintained through an international balance of diplomacy and alliances and all that. Some people will tell you, well, if you're part of an alliance, then you're not a sovereign nation state, and we are not.
No, that is one of the issues that the terminology of global south also has been criticized. That how can the existence or coexistence of be it IBSA or BRICS or so many other platforms work? Because coexistence, according to Western narrative, is seen as a brainchild of Soviet communism. So,
well, I have one comment about BRICS.
Yeah.
Follow how people vote through their feet. How many people do you know that are emigrating to Russia or to China or to Iran? People are emigrating to Western Europe and to the United States. They are risking their lives. They are going in boats. They are crossing. They are drowning and crossing
Mediterranean.
Jungles in America with tigers and to leave
barefoot.
to leave the BRICS to leave the BRICS countries. So I think BRICS are a bit over pretentious and overrated until they can provide for their people. And their people and until I would want to move to a BRICS country instead of wanting to move somewhere. So that's the BRICS conference was very recent.
Yes. It is, and the BRICS is extending its. I think even Turkey yesterday has said that
Turkey said they will
join it. I'm like, yes, the entire world should join us. Okay. So the point is, the next question is by Dr. Khwaja. It is that how long was it when Israeli military actually fought another military? Is it 1973 or 2006? Because will 2006
no,
be the correct?
73. He's right. 73. 2006 was not with the military, was
Yeah.
with Hezbollah, which is the
Yeah.
militia.
Yeah.
And yes, and Israeli society has changed. Israeli society has gone was in a very strict isolation mode from 2004 2005 onwards on when the peace process completely failed, uh, and the Israelis had to decide what to do with that. There were many ideas floating around, and I was at Chatham House at the time, and we published a book with with the different strategies that Israelis were proposing. And we had a little conference where they explained it. And the one that dominated and prevailed was the most awful one. All the others sounded nice, but the one who was the most awful person in the room, I'm sure he wouldn't mind being named as an awful person because he's that kind of character. He's a professor at Haifa called Daniel Shweftan. And he said, why do we need to, you cannot force people to have peace with you.
Mm.
So if the Palestinians are not willing to have peace, are
Yeah.
not ready, why don't we separate? So why don't we build a wall and separate and concentrate on building our economy and education and all these sort of things? And that's what they did. They separated, and that kind of thinking was, I mean, he was the advisor of Ariel Sharon,
Ah.
and that's why Sharon decided to withdraw from Gaza and to withdraw from the West Bank and give the PLO more control over the West Bank. But
Yeah.
all this failed also. All this failed because of mainly because of Hamas and Islamic Jihad and because of the extremists on the Israeli side
Yeah.
who still think that they need to expel all the Palestinians. And I mean, there are crazies on both sides,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're shocked when you see them, but they exist, and they help each other because if uh, the presence of Hamas uh, uh, makes the extremists in Israel sound more credible.
Yeah.
If and the presence of the extremists in Israel make Hamas more credible.
Yeah.
So we are in a real stalemate now. I don't think that there is a possibility of an agreement between Netanyahu and Hamas. It's absurd
It is.
because they
Recently,
both
yeah, he showcased this map
they
without West Bank 2 days back. He
with
showcased a
who?
map without West Bank two
Yes,
days
yes,
back.
yes.
Yeah.
No. It's. I mean, Hamas's objective is to eradicate Israel,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people on Bibi's side, most of them, their objective are to eradicate the Palestinians.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't have an agreement between two people who want to eradicate each other.
It's like
It's
Frankenstein's monster, both of them, each other's.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's so Israel has not had ceased being a militarized society
Yeah.
and had become too prosperous in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and they were trying to forget the Palestinian question.
Yeah.
Let's forget about the Palestinians for 2 generations.
Yeah.
We'll wake up in 2 generations and we'll see, are they ready? Are they not ready? And we may make peace with them. So they forgot about the Palestinians, and they even tried to bribe them,
Yeah.
like Bibi Netanyahu tried to bribe Hamas
Yeah.
uh, with agreements sponsored by Qatar and Egypt, and but it didn't work.
Hmm.
So so Israel is not the fighting society, the citadel that it used to be
Yeah.
before. Maybe it will maybe as a result of what happened, it will become one again, which is awful also. Yeah.
Okay.